Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and happy new year to you. I thought this was a good time to share this video which I've been planning on making for a while and talk about some of the things that helped me to quit sugar. I used to be proper addicted to sugar, like hardcore. If you looked up signs of addiction, I had them. I felt like I was a slave to sugar. I couldn't do without it. I used to be obsessed with having things in the house. I know some people say, oh, well, I just don't have chocolate in the house and then I don't eat it. I would be baking something at 9 p.m. just so as I had some kind of treat or dessert to eat because I was that obsessed. And now I no longer eat sugar, or rather I sometimes eat sugar. I'll have a piece of dark chocolate, like 1, maybe 2 squares of dark chocolate 2 or 3 times a month. But when I eat sugar, it's very mindful and I choose to eat it and I'm done with it. It doesn't have that grip on me that it used to have. Breaking the sugar addiction is not easy, but it is so worth it. You will feel so much better. Your skin will probably improve. Your mood will probably improve. Your energy will improve. And besides all of that you can kind of see and feel, it is the #1 best thing you can do for your cardiovascular health. Forget about cholesterol and fat and all of these things that we have been told. Sugar is the worst thing you can do for your cardiovascular health, and quitting it is the best thing you can do. In fact, it's the #1 thing you can do for your overall health and your mental health. I promise you it will be worth it if you can push through and break that addiction. If you are addicted, it will be the best thing you've ever done. Okay, so I was completely addicted, as I mentioned, and now I'm not. So how did I make that happen? Here are some of the things that worked for me. Tip #1 is to avoid carbohydrates in the morning. And I'm not saying that you need to go full on Atkins diet, but bear in mind that carbohydrates, especially simple carbohydrates, are essentially sugar. Your body immediately converts it to sugar. And what are the most common breakfast foods? Toast, which contains flour, which is pretty much immediately converted to sugar in your body. Cereal, same thing, and probably with added sugar on top of it. What else? Yogurt usually has sugar in. Muesli or granola usually has sugar in. Pancakes, waffles, donuts, bagels, all of these like traditional breakfast foods are loaded with sugar or are simple sugar in a carbohydrate form. And if you can avoid those and start your day with a protein and some kind of vegetable, fruit if you can handle it, but I'll get onto that in a minute, you will set yourself up for success that day and you will delay the onset of sugar cravings. So something like an omelette, you can put loads of veggies in it, you can put cheese in it, mushrooms, any kind of veggies, zucchini, onions, peppers, have some tomato on the side. That will be a breakfast that will set you up and, like I said, delay the sugar cravings. It will help you to feel full for longer and it will stabilize your blood sugar. I have a couple of recipes on my blog that I can share with you. One is for a breakfast bake that you can customize to your heart's content, and the other is for egg and ham breakfast cups. I will leave the links down below. Now, I briefly mentioned fruit. Now, for some people, the naturally occurring sugar in the fruit is enough to trigger their fruit cravings. So see how you go. Lower sugar fruits are things like melons and berries and apples, whereas obviously something like bananas is going to be higher in sugar and starches as well. Also try to avoid adding things like maple syrup or honey or anything like that. I know it's natural, but at the end of the day it's still sugar, and having that sweet hit can be enough to trigger your sugar cravings. And when you're trying to quit, you just want to set yourself up for success. Don't sabotage yourself by adding things like honey. Tip #2 is don't cut down, cut it out. Just cut all sugar out completely as you are trying to break the addiction. If it is a true addiction, if you give the smallest amount, you are going to feed that addiction. You don't see a recovering heroin addict having just a little bit of heroin on the weekends. It's just going to trigger a downward spiral. You have to cut it out completely if you're wanting to break the addiction. Yes, later on you may be able to add in a little bit of sugar now and again and be able to manage it, but if you are in the throes of addiction, that is not going to work. Cut it out completely and give yourself the best chance to kind of get on top of things before you start to reintroduce tiny bits later. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, if it was so easy to just cut it out completely, I wouldn't even be watching this video. It would just be simple. It's not that easy. I know it's not easy, But it's even harder if you try to wean yourself off sugar and drag out that process. I promise you it will be worth it. It might be hell to go through that kind of addiction breaking period, but it will be so worth it, because once you get through it, and it can take maybe a couple of weeks, you will stop craving everything. All of your cravings will go away, not just your sugar cravings. It's amazing how it works. So it's really worth it to just commit to be strong, stick at it, and cut it out completely. Also, try to avoid artificial sweeteners. They are so not good for you. You can Google it, you can see what they do to your body. They are chemicals that are not helpful to you, and just the sweet taste can be enough to trigger a real sugar craving. So I would recommend avoiding those as well. Sorry about the lighting. I know I've been going like super bright and pale like a ghost, and then darken out the clouds, the thing, you know the drill. You're probably going to like tip number 3 a little bit better than tip number 2, and it's to indulge in other ways. During that period when you're breaking that sugar addiction and you've gone cold turkey and you've stopped eating sugar, you can feel deprived, you can feel sorry for yourself, you can have all kinds of cravings, and one of the ways to overcome that is to just treat yourself in other ways. With food, I mean, I'm not even saying like go and take a bubble bath, because when you're craving sugar, that is not going to help. But try to indulge in other ways. Have some nuts if you don't normally eat nuts, some delicious expensive cheeses maybe, or even just like a packet of chips. Whatever you want to eat, let yourself eat it. Pizza, whatever, go for it and indulge. It's only for a short period and it's a means to an end. If you're indulging in other delicious flavors that are not sugar, then it's easier to be distracted from those cravings of sugar and to not feel so deprived and sorry for yourself. So if you want to eat anything, just go for it. As long as it doesn't have sugar in, indulge, pig out, have a ball. It's a perk along the way of trying to quit your sugar, and just enjoy it. I promise you it will help. Try to avoid things like crackers with your cheese, especially if they're just made with white flour, because again, simple carbohydrate, it can be enough to trigger sugar cravings. So try to avoid things like that. So any other kind of savory treats, or try new recipes. Use that as a time to introduce new flavors and taste to yourself, just to distract you from those cravings. Tip number 4 is dealing with chocolate cravings. So besides just craving something sweet and sugary, you may find yourself craving chocolate desperately. I know I did. I used dark chocolate to overcome these cravings. Now, I used to hate dark chocolate. I used to despise it and think it was disgusting and that it shouldn't even be called chocolate. But I guess being desperate enough in that kind of withdrawal period, trying to break a sugar addiction, I gave dark chocolate a try, and I found that I really liked it, and that it hit that kind of chocolate craving, and then the sweet craving went away. It's not as sweet as milk chocolate, so it wasn't enough to kind of trigger a sugar craving, but it was enough to deal with the chocolate craving. Now, there are different levels of dark chocolate, and the darker your chocolate, the better, but obviously you still want to enjoy it. Whittaker's does a wonderful 50% dark chocolate that has more sugar than their 62% dark chocolate, but just experiment, see which one you like and which one doesn't trigger your cravings. If you find it triggers your cravings, put it aside and step away. It's not worth it. Other ways to overcome a chocolate craving is to take something like cashew butter and mix in a bit of cocoa. It's not sweet, it's almost like a savory chocolate, if that makes sense. I know it doesn't make sense. My brain gets so confused if I eat that. It kind of gets the chocolate hit, but there's no sweetness, and it's confusing enough that my cravings go away. I have also heard that if you're craving chocolate, you might be low in magnesium, so you can supplement with 300 to 600 milligrams of magnesium a day. But please consult your doctor if you want to do this. I have had magnesium toxicity from too much magnesium, and it is not fun. So do be careful when supplementing with magnesium, but it may be something to look into. Tip number 5 is banana milkshakes. Now, when I was quitting sugar, I didn't find that fruit triggered my sugar cravings. If it triggers yours, step away from this one. If you're fine with fruit, then banana milkshakes are the way to go. Freeze your bananas. I used to peel them, chop them up, and put them in the freezer, and use that in your blender with cocoa, with peanut butter, with milk and then blend yourself up a milkshake. I did like to add the peanut butter because I found that the protein helped to stabilize my blood sugar, and I just like the flavor of chocolate peanut butter things. The cocoa, of course, will deal with any chocolate cravings that you may have, and it's just delicious. You can also just do banana and milk and vanilla extract. You can put cinnamon in. The basis of the frozen bananas makes it a really creamy ice cream like, or like proper milkshake like texture, but there's no added sugar. I have a blog post about banana milkshakes and I will link that here. Tip number 6 is to try to keep your blood sugar stable. You are fighting biology and fighting nature if you let your blood sugar dip and then want to overcome sugar cravings, because that's the first thing your body's going to crave. It's going to want a quick hit of energy and then you're going to start craving sugar. So try and keep your blood sugar stable. Don't get too hungry in between meals. It's better to have a small meal or snack every kind of 3 to 4 hours, pretty much like a baby, rather than eating and then 6 hours later you're starving for your next meal, and 6 or 7 hours later you're starving for your next meal. So just kind of graze throughout the day so you're never getting too hungry, your blood sugar is never dipping too low. And if you eat protein, that will also help to stabilize your blood sugar. So nuts, meat, chicken, fish, eggs, cheese, things like that will fill you up and will stabilize your blood sugar for longer. Tip 7 is to drink lots of water. It gives you something to focus on. It helps you to feel a little bit full. You will overall feel better, especially if you keep this up as a long-term habit. And it really does help if you're trying to beat sugar addiction. Tip number 8 is to delay gratification. If you have an awful beast of a sugar craving and it is dogging you and you can't shake it and you're obsessing about it and it's all you can think of, promise yourself that you will allow yourself a sugar treat, but only after dinner. The later in the day that you can have that, the better off you will be. I found that once I started eating sugar, it was like I became possessed, and that was all I wanted to do, and it was beyond my control to stop myself from doing. If I had something at lunchtime, then all afternoon I would want to be snacking. I would be thinking about sugar things. I'd be craving, I'd be desperate for it, and my blood sugar would crash, my mood would crash, and then you want to comfort yourself, and it just turned into this horrible downward spiral. So if I did treat myself, it would be after dinner. This does two things. First of all, if you are indulging, you're eating it after a full meal, so your blood sugar isn't going to have that kind of spike and crash that it would if you just have it on its own. Second of all, if it does trigger this downward spiral, you can shut it off by going to bed. You don't have kind of hours and hours of the rest of your day ahead of you to be dealing with these cravings. And it does help to know, look, I'm desperate now, I'm craving this, I've been craving this since 10 o'clock this morning, but I am going to have it. It helps to have something to look forward to. Now, I know I said earlier to just cut it out, go cold turkey, don't feed the monster. This is something that you'll try later on once you feel like you have a bit of a handle on quitting sugar, but you still have the occasional craving. Just delay that gratification as long as possible. You might even find that you don't actually want it anymore after you've had your dinner. And it also helps to overcome that whole, well, I had it and I blew it, so there goes the rest of the day. Like if you give in and have a cupcake at noon, you might say, well, there goes this day, I've blown it, I've already had sugar today, and then you behave badly and eat badly for the rest of the day. If you're having the treat after dinner, that's less likely to happen. Tip number 9 is to look for hidden saboteurs. So you might find that you've followed all these tips, you have avoided all sugary things, you don't have it in the house, you've gone cold turkey, blah blah blah, and you are still being dogged by sugar cravings and you don't feel like you've broken that addiction even after 2 weeks or more. You may be sabotaged by hidden sugar in your foods. Now, I'm not talking about sugary cereal or cupcakes or anything like that. Baked beans, mayonnaise, ketchup, salad dressing, any kind of processed foods usually has sugar in it. It drives me insane, but they put sugar into everything, and that may be enough to still keep feeding your addiction and keep it alive and prevent you from breaking that addiction and that hold that it has on you. So try and eat as clean as possible, cook from scratch if you can, check your labels, and try to cut out any hidden sugar saboteurs that might be lurking in there. You may be able to go back to eating those foods in future without it triggering an addiction, but if you're trying to quit and you are being held back, that's something to look for. Now, not all labels are going to say sugar at the back. I read a label recently that said organic evaporated cane syrup. That is how they make sugar. They evaporate cane syrup. It is sugar. If it says fructose, maltose, dextrose, lactose, glucose, if it ends in O's, it's sugar. It's a form of sugar. They might say malted rice syrup or something like that. Sugars are hidden under different names. They try to be tricky with it, but if you look at the nutritional information, and tells you how many grams of protein and carbohydrates and sodium and all that, sugar will be listed under there. Now some sugars obviously are natural, like, you know, like fruit naturally has sugar, milk naturally has sugar, but if you're eating something like mayonnaise, look under sugars. There shouldn't be any sugar in that, but there usually is, and that is one of the reasons I make my own mayonnaise. Now once you've broken your sugar addiction and you feel like it doesn't have a hold on you anymore and you can choose to eat sugar, how much sugar you reintroduce into your diet is completely up to you. That is a personal decision. For me, the less the better. My body doesn't like it, I don't feel good when I eat it, I don't tolerate it well, and it triggers that addiction quite easily. Just like a recovering drug addict is always going to be an addict and needs to be aware of that, I'm exactly the same with sugar. I watch myself very, very carefully, and if I start to crave sweet things, I know, cut all sugar out completely. Sometimes I'll still eat things like mayonnaise, but if I start getting sugar cravings, that's it. They all go. Nothing with sugar will cross my lips, because I'm so afraid of triggering that complete addiction that I had that had such a hold on me. It was miserable, and I'm so much happier now that I'm free of that. I no longer have the blood sugar crashes, the low moods, the brain fog. My cardiovascular health is excellent. My blood tests reveal excellent results, even though I have a very strong family history of stroke on my mother's side, and my cardiovascular health wasn't always so good. I don't have food cravings. I don't feel obsessed anymore. I have more of a sense of well-being. I went an entire year without being sick once, even though I have a dodgy immune system, and at the time I was suffering from adrenal fatigue, and I attribute that to quitting sugar. And I was actually exercising every day at the time. I'm not actually doing that at the moment. I should be, but I'm generally pretty healthy, even though I have an autoimmune disease and my immune system isn't the best, but I stay pretty healthy, and I'm sure it's down to not eating sugar. If I can reach this place of peace and freedom from sugar addiction, I promise you, you can too. I was so addicted, it was serious, and if I can do it, you can do it. Believe in yourself, commit to it, and stick it out. It is so, so worth it. I hope that some of these tips are helpful to you and that they will help you in your journey. I wish you all the best. Just stay strong through those first 2 weeks. They are the worst, but it will be so worth it in the end. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.